So let's talk about something that most people have never even heard of, but it quietly shapes, well, pretty much the entire global economy. It's the official rulebook for international business, the IFRS standards, and today we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it gets written.
I mean, really think about that for a second. When a company over in Japan reports its earnings, how can an investor in Brazil trust that they're even speaking the same financial language? Who gets to decide what words like profit or asset actually mean across all these different borders? Well, that's the big puzzle we're going to solve.
So, first things first, why do we even need global rules? Why can't every country just do its own thing? Well, as you can probably guess, in a world as connected as ours, having a shared language for money isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely essential.
I mean, imagine the alternative. It would be total chaos. You couldn't compare one company to another. Money wouldn't flow to where it's needed, and trust would just disappear. A single set of rules, like the IFRS standards, creates clarity, it creates comparability, and most importantly, it creates trust. It's really the difference between a global market that actually works and a financial Tower of Babel.
And this quote from the IFRS Foundation really gets to the heart of it. The goal isn't just to make any rules, it's to create a single set of high-quality standards. And look at those key words: understandable, enforceable, and globally accepted. It's all done in the public interest, which is just a way of saying it's for all of us, to keep the economic engine running for everybody. Okay, so who are these mysterious rule makers? Let's meet the cast of characters, the organizations involved, and, just as importantly, the core beliefs that guide every single move they make. You can think of the structure in 3 layers. Up at the top, you've got the IFRS Foundation trustees. They're like the board of directors, they provide oversight. Then you have the engine room, the International Accounting Standards Board, or the IASB. These are the folks who actually develop and vote on the standards. And helping them out, you have the IFRS Interpretations Committee. They're kind of like the expert support team, tackling all the tricky questions that come. Now, their whole system is built on 3 huge pillars. First, transparency. This means their meetings are held in public. Second, full and fair consultation. They go out of their way to get feedback from all around the world. And third, accountability. They have to explain, publicly, why they made the decisions they did. So this is not some secret club making rules behind closed doors. It's designed from the ground up to be open. So, how does that all work in the real world? Let's actually follow the journey of a new standard, from just a tiny little problem to a rule that's used by companies in over 140 countries. And let me tell you, it's a long and very, very rigorous road. All right, here's the roadmap. It all kicks off with a ton of research. That leads to a discussion paper, which is basically them thinking out loud. Then comes the big one, a formal proposal called an exposure draft. After they get a mountain of feedback on that, it can finally become a final standard. But wait, it's not over. They even do a post-implementation review later on to see if the rule is actually working as intended. And this is so important. Every standard starts with a question, not a solution. The first step is all about doing the homework, gathering evidence to figure out if there's a real problem that needs fixing. They don't write a rule just for the sake of it. Okay, so after all that initial research and discussion, we get to this critical step, the exposure draft. This is the main event. It's the first time the entire world gets to see the full, detailed text of a new proposed rule. It's the board putting its cards on the table and saying, all right, world, here's what we've got. What do you think? And they don't just ask for your opinion, they give you serious time to form one. For a major proposal, the public gets a minimum of 120 days to read it, analyze it, and send in their thoughts. That's 4 whole months dedicated to just listening. And that feedback comes in from everywhere. You've got formal comment letters, of course, but they also hold public hearings. They do fieldwork with actual companies to see how it might play out, and they talk to groups of industry experts. They really do try to hear from everyone. Once all those opinions are in, the really hard work begins. The board doesn't just read the mail. They publicly debate the major points that people raised, and they do it in open meetings that you can actually watch. You can see them wrestling with all the arguments and counterarguments. Now, getting a rule across the finish line is tough. It's not a simple majority vote. No way. It requires a super majority. At least 9 of the 14 board members have to say yes. This makes sure that any new rule has a really strong consensus from this diverse global group before it goes out into the world. And get this just shows how serious they are about transparency. Even after a standard passes, any board member who voted against it has to publish something called a dissenting opinion, where they explain exactly why they disagreed. It proves that debate and different viewpoints are a core part of the system. So,
They have this incredibly detailed process, right? But who makes sure they stick to it? Who watches the watchman, so to speak? Well, let's look at the internal watchdog that ensures this whole journey is fair from start to finish.
And that is the job of the DPOC, the Due Process Oversight Committee. This is an independent group of trustees, and their only job is to watch the rulemakers. They're the guardians of the process, making sure every single step is followed and every principle is honored.
You see, the process has two types of steps. Some are mandatory, like publishing that exposure draft. They absolutely have to do it, no excuses. But other steps are comply or explain. Things like holding public hearings are highly recommended, and if the board decides not to do one, they have to formally explain their reasons why to the DPOC. And here is the absolute key distinction. The DPOC does not get into the weeds of the accounting. They won't debate how to value an asset. Their one and only job is to make sure the process was followed correctly. Was it fair? Was it transparent? It's a complete separation of powers.
Okay, we've gone through the committees, the drafts, the oversight, the whole shebang. But let's bring it all back home. Why does this ridiculously careful, years-long journey to create a rule actually matter to us?
And that's a fair question, isn't it? It all sounds so technical, so deep in the world of accounting. But the ripples from this one rulebook spread out and affect the health of the entire global economy. Because this process exists, investors can trust the numbers they're seeing. And when there's trust, money, capital, can flow more easily to the best ideas and the best companies wherever they are in the world. And that efficiency helps create financial stability and supports the kind of economic growth that affects all of our jobs, our savings, our lives. This isn't just a rulebook for accountants, it's fundamental infrastructure for the modern world. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that's changing so fast, with crypto, AI, and huge new demands around sustainability, what's the next big financial puzzle that's going to kick this whole journey off all over again? Because the process never really stops, because the world of business never stops evolving.